All right, my wrap up is late, so my December wrap up is happening right now. Maybe we'll be joined by Jaina. She's sitting over here. I have my reading journal that is gonna be retired now. There's only a couple pages left, but I got a actual reading journal for Christmas. I can retire how I did it before. So first I finished Mockingjay, so I've completed my reread of the Hunger Games series. Like, this book still definitely felt very different than the first two because you obviously don't have the games and it's a lot more politically focused on the actual political world of this between the different districts and everything. And I think I understood more as an adult rather than I read this as a teenager in high schoolish, late high school. I think I was late to when the Hunger Games actually like started coming out. And then I read a short story called The Kill Clause by Lisa Unger. It was Prime Reading, like a free thing if you're a member of Prime. There's certain books that they just allow you to have free, kind of like Kindle Unlimited, but you are paying for Prime, so you get those ones. But it was a short thriller called The Kill Clause, and you can always tell a writer's craft by how they can write a extremely short story and still have a very concise setup and ending. So this was only 70 pages, like most of the short stories that Amazon like pays writers to put out. And I thought it did, like, she does really well to set up and execute a thriller in 70 pages with position, like explaining characters, but you don't have a lot of time to fully develop them. But she does well enough that you you understand motivations and everything. With this, I gave it like a 3 star. It was just kind of fun to read a seasonal thriller. Um, in my notes, I say which I barely remember this now. There is like, so basically, the main character is like a hitman and takes up jobs to on hits for certain rich people. And there's just one specific hit job scene that didn't need to go into as much detail with like spiciness as it did. So that was the only like really downside for me to this thriller. The first super seasonal read is one of them that we picked for my online book club. Um, and it's a classic. It's called A Child's Christmas in Wales by Dylan Thomas, and it's also a short story. You joining us now? Okay. That gives like a childlike perspective on Christmas and getting your toys and how family comes over, and playing with your friends in the snow and having snowball fights and everything. It just really brought up that childlike perspective and feeling of Christmas. I'll share my one of my favorite quotes that's mentioned in it. The boy is describing one of the presents he got. It was a celluloid duck that made the most unduck-like sound when pressed, a mewing moo. that an ambitious cat might make who wished to be a cow. So that right away evoked one of those, you know, the chicken squeaker things. Like they have like YouTube channels where they do like songs with the squeaky mooing chicken or duck, like those toys. So that immediately brought to my mind that picture. So I thought it was written in a way that it brought you memories or you brought you pictures in your head of things. Then the next thing I read was Storefront, and I put up a review of it already. But I really enjoyed this, and I I'm glad I did, and I'm glad I picked up the Chirp audiobook that was on sale to check it out. So most of my thoughts are in my review, so I won't spend too much time on it. But needless to say, I enjoyed it, and I'm picking up the second book soon. The next book I read was The Way of Dante. It was an e-arc. It just basically is a summary of what C.S. Lewis, Dorothy Sayers, and someone Williams thought of uh, the Divine Comedy written by Dante, that classic literature, and brought up just like theological points and like writer perspective on his comedy. I thought it was very interesting, but it was also kind of over my head because I hadn't read a lot of the C.S. Lewis that was brought up. So I'll definitely be checking out like all the C.S. Lewis I haven't read, and also rereading Dante, because I only ever read Inferno, and I think this covers all three. So I felt like I needed to have read them to fully grasp what was summarized. But it was good. It was just that over the head thing for me that I need to read all those things and then pick this up again probably and get more out of it. So if you're a person who has completed all of the required reading, I think you would find this book interesting more so than I got out of it. Then I read the Witcher prequel, Crossroads of Ravens. I also have a review for that, so I won't spend too much time on it. I enjoyed it. I will be picking up the rest of the series eventually, probably working on it slowly. It's not a high priority right now, but I did enjoy his writing, and I gave this a 3-star as well because I didn't really know where the plot was going while reading, but I did enjoy the adventure. So then I read Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. She remains to be my go-to for romantasy because she focuses on love more than lust, and that's a big point to me of why I don't gravitate towards romantasy. I don't want lust in my romantasy or romance. So, and then when you get to kind of more of the intimacy parts, which is way later in the books, she does more of a lyrical description rather than fully explaining everything that's happening. So I appreciate that. And this one focuses like 99% on the fantasy of this world. So if you read Divine Rivals, you and then you wanted more of the fantastical, the information behind the gods portion of that romantasy, this one will do it. I really enjoyed it because it was so fantasy focused, and I think that's why some people didn't like this, is they wanted the romance focus of divine rivals, but that's not really what the focus is of this book. It's fantasy first more than it is the romance. So that's why I think we're over using the romantasy tag, because some things I don't think should be categorized under that, because it gives a way different connotation to it. But that's besides the point. I enjoyed it. I give it 4 stars. The next book was my library challenge for 2025 completion book, The Paris Express by Emma Donoghue. If you like extremely character focused historical fiction, I think you'd like this. Do not look up the historical event that this is based on if you don't know anything about it. I spoiled myself, I guess, by looking it up, and then not much changes from the actual historical event. It's very focused on the fictional characters. Partially fictional characters that she brought into this. So I was a little disappointed. And there were also so many characters that I couldn't keep track of who was who. I did listen to this mostly on audiobook, but there were so many characters, and for a person who reads epic fantasy where a lot of characters are present, that's saying something. When I'm used to a lot of characters, but this one's either it was that the characters didn't stand out enough that I could separate them from the other ones, or others were more prominent and I was like, oh yeah, that's this person. So I don't know if it was like, I don't know. It was difficult. We also get like, I feel like there's not a satisfying ending if this is character focused either, because there's questions I still have about like, okay, but what happened to this person? Um, so 2-star is what I gave it, mostly because if I hadn't spoiled myself, I think it would have been more interesting. The actual historical event is interesting. There was also a random gay spicy scene that didn't make sense to me. It felt out of place, and I also forgot which character was the person that this was supposed to like make you realize he was gay. So it didn't hit. Moving on to a happier topic. Reread of The Christmas Pig. We also chose this for that online book club that I read the Christmas in Wales one for. We have one more that I'll talk about in a second that we picked to read as our final meeting. So I had forgotten the setup to how we get to Toyland. Okay, it's mentioned in the description. The Land of the Lost has more than just toys, and I forgot that. And that brought so much more to the story this time, because I had only remembered that there were lost toys, but there's more. Like, you get lost ambition, you get lost hope, as characters in the Land of the Lost, and I don't know, that stuck out to me this time while rereading, because I had already read it and I already kind of understood what was going to happen. Middle grade read that's, I think, both great for adults and kids. So, like, if you're reading it to your kid, I think you'll get something out of it too. So, it's super wholesome, great Christmas time read, because everything happens on Christmas Eve. There's also Santa does appear in this, but he has a very minuscule role. But yep, 5 star again. Then my final book for 2025 and December is Letters from Father Christmas by J.R.R. Tolkien. I haven't read this before ever. I was gonna pick it up like 2 years ago and then never did because it's gonna take forever for my library to get the actual physical copy in. So I bought it on ebook because it was on sale, and I would say make sure you have either a color tablet or something, or read it on your computer or something to get the full effect of these letters, because he does illustrations and the penmanship of the letters make a big difference. So I had started it and like was losing interest because I was reading it on my black and white little Kindle e-reader and not getting a lot out of it. But once I switched to a color tablet, everything was a lot better. So it's super sweet to just think about how his kids would read these letters every year. And then you also get like it kind of gets sad because as the kids grow up, then he's writing to just the younger kids that believe in Santa still, and how he creates this whole backstory to fighting with goblins and a polar bear helping Santa. So I thought that was cute and interesting. It does, like, it feels like it ends very sad because we get to the point that World War II happens, um, which I thought was super interesting to have letters to read from that time that just like make you look at history in a different way. But so it just mentions a lot of like different problems that are brought up by the war. And then just kind of ends. So it kind of ends on a sad note because you're like, oh, well, World War II happened and then Santa had to go away. Like, it was just kind of sad, but the entirety of it was a good experience. Never having read it before, and I have another Tolkien under my belt. All right, now we have a Jaina still. I'm gonna talk about my TBR plans for January. So I already finished The Housemaid. Interesting. I'll probably have a review up with my thoughts on that soon. And I also just finished my reread of The Dragon's Apprentice because I have an e-arc of the second book that I'm also going to read this month to have it out in time for the author to have reviews. And Winterween is this month, so I'll be participating. That's the 9th through the 15th. I plan to read Full Moon by Jim Butcher, and that should fulfill it has vampires, werewolves, witches in it. And then the read thriller or horror, I think that Dresden also counts for that, but I do have the Hexologists and the Tangle of Time or In Time, the sequel. I have to reread if I do the sequel for the red cover prompt. Otherwise, I'm gonna pick up. I have some other red covers that I can pick up, so it may change based on how fast I get through Full Moon. I also plan to do a vlog for that. And then I also mentioned in my last book haul that I got the Nerdrotic autobiography, so I plan to also have that to read. And I also picked up Wondersmith, which is the second book in the Nevermore series, because the audiobook was ready, and after The Housemaid, I needed something light, fluffy, and fun. And then for my library challenge, the prompt is to read a genre that you rarely read or have never read. And that for me would be romance, basically because of the state of modern romance. So I am picking up some clean romances. I have two options. I'm gonna start Fairest of Heart, but if I don't end up enjoying it, if I end up not really if it ends up not really working, I have Better Than the Movies as a backup, just in case, because this year I really don't want to DNF any of the library picks. And also, the more you borrow from your library, the better for them. So I was like, I might as well just pick up multiple. So that is my December wrap up and my plans for January. I have a bunch of book video plans. I'm having fun just making stuff. It's very different than making art content. So I'm just having fun. But that'll be it for this video. Let me know if you've read any of the things I wrapped up for December and what you're maybe excited for me to read in January. Okay. Well, that's what Jane is reading. Okay. And that's all.
But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, maybe you'll get sick of being the